Hello and welcome to this latest episode of Tell Me More with me, Tom Idle, here on 2 Degrees. Thank you for tuning in. This time we're in the north of England, in Yorkshire, and we're just down the road from the UK headquarters of Asda Walmart. And I'm delighted to be joined by Julian Walker Palin, who is the company's UK Head of Corporate Sustainability. Julian, thank you for joining us and spending some time with us today.
No worries, thanks for the invitation.
Good, let's dive straight in. Let's talk about what sustainability means to Asda. You're obviously a huge business with warehouses and stores all over the place. You have a huge range of products, a very complex supply chain, and we'll come in to talk about supply chain a bit later on. But first of all, how do you define sustainability at Asda?
Yeah, it's a good question, isn't it? Because companies define sustainability in different ways. You've got your classic triple bottom line. You've got your environmental, your social, and your economic part of sustainability. For us, economic is just who we are. We are great products, great quality at low prices. That's the economic sustainability, in essence, covered already. The social sustainability we call community life, and through our community life campaign, we do a lot of activity, making our stores community hubs and doing the right thing for the areas in which they trade. And so sustainability tends to be environment. That tends to be the shorthand that we use.
Yeah, and your remit as head of corporate sustainability stretches how far?
It stretches across environmental sustainability, and my role is to make sure we have the right strategy in place, the right policies to support it, make sure we are communicating internally and externally, and to innovate, to try and make sure that we have the programs, the work plans that will help to deliver against that strategy, and generally just kind of shove everyone along a bit within the company to try and make sure all colleagues are taking part in this activity.
Yeah, and what's your story? So what brings you to Asda?
Well, I've been at Asda since 2007. Before that, I was head of regional corporate affairs for Tesco. And in my role at Tesco, I was doing a lot of communication activity around sustainability, talking to various stakeholders around what Tesco was doing on sustainability. But my personal passion is in the environment. So I guess, it was a lucky happenstance where I'd built up knowledge and skills around communication and around policy work with a personal interest around the environment. And I jumped at the opportunity to be able to do that for the world's largest company,
Sure.
As a sustainability professional.
So would you call yourself an environmentalist?
I'd call myself a businessman. I do what's right for my business, but using the lens of what's right for the environment and what's right for my business has given us a lot of success on sustainability over the past few years. Do I care about the environment? I absolutely do, yes.
So we'll talk about some of your successes in a moment. So, but if you were to put a point on a graph, what does the sustainability journey look like, and where are you on that journey?
You could argue that we've always had sustainability intentions in mind. We're an everyday low cost equals everyday low prices company, which means you can't have waste or it destroys your business model. Sustainability very often is about efficiency, about removing waste. So we've always kind of had sustainability in mind. But it was through the vision of Walmart CEO Lee Scott in 2005 that we first started using the S word, the sustainability word. So I guess you could say the birth of our sustainability strategy was 2005. We've made a lot of progress since then. But if our journey is this long, we're probably kind of still here. There's still a lot to go after.
Sure. And what about the cynics who would say, Asda Walmart sells lots and lots of products, some products that people don't really need, that you build these out-of-town shopping centres that destroy communities, that until you change your fundamental business model, you can't really become a sustainable business. What do you say to those guys?
The people that I listen to our customers, and I've had a panel for the last couple of years of over 8,000 customers that I've asked, those kind of questions of, what do you expect from your retailer? Some of this panel are primary shoppers, so Asda shoppers, and actually quite a number of them are secondary or non-Asda shoppers as well. So we've really got views right across the piece. And what they say to us is, they say, we recognise that you are very efficient. You bring products to us in an efficient way as possible. You distribute them as efficiently as you can. You store them and sell them out of efficient stores or, home shopping. But we do want you to become more sustainable. So actually the people I listen to are our customers. They're the ones, and customers generally, they're the ones that know what they want, and they're the people that we should be listening to.
And they really care, do they?
They do care, yeah. What's really interesting is, our survey shows those on, lower incomes, the lower demographics, actually care more than those on high incomes in high demographics. And I think that's really, really interesting. And they expect us to do more on their behalf going forward as well. So this is definitely not a flash in the pan. This is something that customers generally, well over 3/4 of them are strongly saying to us, we really expect you to be doing more in this space on our behalf.
And is that largely what is driving your sustainability program? The need to find efficiencies, the need to cut your costs so that you can pass on savings to customers that expect low prices from Asda?
There's a number of drivers behind our sustainability activity. I mean, clearly doing the right thing for the environment is a strong driver. It absolutely is. And we know that particularly when we're attracting new colleagues into our business, these colleagues, and many of them very bright, want to work for a company that they see doing the right thing. They want to be part of that. So that's absolutely a driver. But I think one of the key things we've done really successfully is to make sustainability part of our core purpose. We do have to be efficient. And that's why since 2005, when we started using this lens of sustainability, that efficient business in 2005 has now, to come to present day, saved nearly £100 million by using that lens.
Right.
So it's also good for the bottom line as well. And you know what? It gets us innovating. It gets us thinking about things in different ways to bring great new products and great new ways of doing business for our customers. It's really ticking all those boxes.
Sure. And you talk about this journey being this long, and you're just about here. What does that look like when you get to the end of that? What does good look like? Where do you want to get to?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, we started focusing on ourselves, on our own operations, for a number of reasons. Back in 2005, my own colleagues couldn't talk about carbon with any certainty about what it meant. They didn't know what the art of the possible was in terms of targets. They didn't know how efficient or inefficient we were when you started looking at things in a different way through that sustainability lens. I want our suppliers all coming together on this common journey because we know it's right for our business and it's right for the environment as well.
So let's talk about
that's where I want to get.
Let's talk about your suppliers in a moment. Let's talk about the impressive results you've had so far around energy, water, waste, transport, products in your properties. You set some ambitious targets, didn't you, for 2015? How do you arrive at targets? How do you set your targets?
I think what you've got to do is you've got to engage colleagues around the business. So I wrote our current sustainability strategy, and I wrote that by walking around the business and talking to colleagues to say, what's on your agenda? Where do you see us going in sustainability? To get a sense from them. We then co-created the work plan together. And then I gave them a little nudge at the end and said, I reckon we can do a bit more than that in certain areas to make sure that the targets were stretching. They have to be challenging targets. There's no point setting yourself targets that you already know how to achieve. You should have an idea of how to achieve it, but not with any certainty. They have to be stretching. And then I took it to our executive board and got the feed in, the builds from those guys, and then that turned into our current strategy. And by doing it that way, of course, we have the engagement from colleagues around the business in its delivery as well. The other thing that I think is really important is to have short-term goals. I'm not actually one to set by 2050 we'll have done X, Y, Z, because I think it's too easy to think, a colleague will go, well, I won't be working for the company, I'll have retired or whatever. Set goals that are individually realistic for people. They can then be held account to deliver against.
So the focus does shift to supply chain and elsewhere. So you'll leave your internal efficiencies for a moment, will you, or is it an ongoing journey?
I think we'll have to suck it and see as we go forward. I would expect that most of the efficiencies have been achieved now. We're now moving into the next area, such as renewables. In fact, we now have a Walmart target to be 30% powered by renewables by 2020 for Asda in the UK.
Right.
That's a really stretching target. So I would expect a lot of this just to become business as usual. If you're the energy manager within Asda, you have this on your KRAs. But it's not transformation anymore. It's business as usual, driving it forward. And then the real transformational stuff, the doing things in a completely different way, will probably come in products and supply chain.
So internally, how do you prioritise your efforts? So how do you choose where to invest your efforts and your resources?
I think sustainability, like any other program, you have to focus on the biggest bang for your buck, so to speak. Yeah. So when we were looking at our strategy, we looked at the colleagues that certainly initially were most engaged, colleagues that also had the biggest impacts in their area, and then worked with those colleagues right back at the beginning in 2005 to understand how best to approach these kind of activities, which then has got us to today where actually it's products and supply chain that is the key focus for us. So now we're engaging more with our buying colleagues and with our technical colleagues, and getting behind some of the initiatives there. So like any other business activity, and this is something I think is really crucial, sustainability should not be along the side and core business here. It's just another strand of core business. So you should approach it in the same way as you'd approach anything else.
Yeah. We've talked about what's really driving your program. We've talked about your customer interest, which is now growing. What about your investors? What do they think of what you're doing?
Do you know the brilliant thing? We actually have one investor, which is Walmart. We're not floated on the UK stock market. We have, just Walmart to answer to. So Walmart, sets us priorities for the year. We then deliver against those priorities in a way that is appropriate for us. We call it freedom within a framework.
Yep.
And Walmart is really engaged on sustainability. So actually our investor, so to speak, wants us to become more sustainable. And that's really, really helpful, when we're putting our plans and activities together.
So your conversations with your senior management team, what do they sound like? And have they sort of evolved over the last few years?
Yeah, we've got a fantastic senior management team. I regularly update them on what's happening in our, sustainability progress, any challenges, any roadblocks I need their help with, and also, to celebrate successes. And they are all absolutely engaged. I've never seen an exec board so engaged on sustainability than Asda has today. And I think you'll see some really great stuff coming out from us with the engagement from that exec board. That's absolutely crucial. But what's also important is having engagement from colleagues from the bottom up as well. I want to engage colleagues on the checkout in the same way as I want to engage colleagues on our board and everybody in between. You absolutely have to try and get everybody, delivering against this as part of core purpose.
And do those checkout workers get it? Do they understand what you're trying to do?
Do you know what? If you ask them what have we achieved, in our energy reduction over the last 2 years, no, they wouldn't be able to give you that number necessarily. But we do have green champions in every single store. So there is a go-to person that they can ask for more information from. And we're actually seeing fantastic levels of engagement. If you think back to what I was saying, that customers get it. Customers are demanding more and more. Our colleagues are our customers. Our colleagues are also serving our customers. So they're all part of that piece anyway. And we're seeing much more engagement from stores, requests from stores for information or something they want to do with a local school and they'd like some information to do that. And that's just brilliant. That really gets me out of bed in the morning.
And how important is that colleague engagement in the overall?
Do you know, it is essential. So the vast majority of our energy efficiency measures, we're over 35% more energy efficient than we were in 2005. Right. The vast majority is through colleague engagement. It's about closing the door on that backup chiller. It's about turning lights out and those kind of activities. We've got pizza cappers that you use to put the plastic around pizzas. Switch them off when you're not using them. Huge amounts of energy that you can save. So colleague engagement is absolutely crucial.
And what's the secret to that? I mean, this is something that everyone's grappling with right now. How do you get people to care? How do you incentivize? How do you recognize them doing simple things like this?
Do you know, I often say to colleagues, and I talk to new managers within our business on a regular basis, and I say to them, actually, if you care about the environment, then you'll engage on this, and that's fantastic. As you don't care if you're a cynic about climate change, either. This is right for saving money for our business. Asda is a business where everybody gets a bonus. So whether you are a board director, whether you sit on a checkout, you get a bonus to some degree. So saving money means you deliver against your bonus. So actually, it can be about saving the planet, or it can just be about getting my bonus. I don't care. It means that everybody engages on sustainability. I don't think there is one silver bullet. You've got to use a lot of different methods to kind of engage with everybody, and some will engage more than others, of course.
Sure. Finding internal efficiencies is obviously one thing. Finding those efficiencies along your value chain is something quite different. And you said that you've now started the process of looking at your supply chain back in 2010. What does your supply chain look like? Describe what it looks like.
Gosh, I mean that's one of the challenges, and also one of the things I love about working for a retailer. It is so varied. We have factories in China that are producing toys for us. We also have companies like Arla Foods, where we are today, that are producing great tasting dairy products for us. We've got small farmers, we've got large farmers, and we've got everybody in between. And we've got a local sourcing program, which might be just one lady in her kitchen producing an amazing jam that goes directly into our stores. It is hugely varied, and we have to make sure that the activity on sustainability is something that is, it's possible for everybody at whatever level to engage with. It can't be too esoteric or too complicated. We need to make it nice and simple.
Sure. And central to your current efforts is the Asda Sustain and Save exchange, the online hub that's hosted on 2 Degrees. How are you using that? Explain what that is and how you're using that to really engage your suppliers and bring them with you on your journey.
Yeah, a couple of years ago I was talking to Barry Williams, and Barry Williams is now our main board director for food. So he's in charge of all food for Asda. And he said to me a couple of years ago, he said, Julian, I want you to help my buyers become more engaged in sustainability. So fantastic, you get that kind of level of support. Back in the day, he was still responsible when he said that to me for a huge part of the business. So that allowed me to take a step back and think, what's the most efficient way of building a program to engage with our buyers in a really serious and meaningful way? So we looked around at the kind of different alternatives out there, and I ended up talking to 2 Degrees. And 2 Degrees, as most people viewing this will know, has an online community. They're very expert in collaboration and sharing information. So we built this thing called the Asda Sustain and Save Exchange, which allowed me to take all of those suppliers that I want to engage, along with our internal audiences, like our buyers, and build a work plan that will give us our biggest bang for our buck. So as long as I'm building a good program with my 2 Degrees colleagues, why wouldn't our suppliers engage on it? And that's the secret to our success so far, I think. Being really open, being really transparent, and having that trust in the process, and the trust in our reasoning behind it as well.
Yeah. And what sort of things are companies doing on the exchange? How are they finding these efficiencies? What sort of things are they doing?
I think the key to its success has been getting the suppliers themselves to drive it. So one of the first things we did was to poll our suppliers and say, what would be the most interest to you? What areas are you struggling with? And our work plan was then built out of that. Right. So it's kind of 3 main areas. There's our core activity. So we've just finished looking at refrigeration. We're now looking at mechanical movement and lighting. And then we're going to move on to look at hot processes. So that's kind of core activity within there. Along the side then, we run a number of projects that really push new ground and aren't part of the same rules as the Sustain and Save Exchange. So the golden rule, etc., wouldn't apply to those projects. Companies come on board if they want to, and don't if they don't want to. But it allows us to test things. And then on top of all of that, we have the suppliers themselves saying, do you know what, I wish I knew the answer to LED lighting, or similar kind of question. And then they will ask that question on the Sustain and Save Exchange. And then we will try and get other suppliers to, give the answer to it that they're seeking.
Sure.
And through that, we have, clearly focused activity, but also the ability to jump in and out and ask the question that's relevant to you. So now actually we're getting to the point where there's a huge amount of information on there, really, really rich. So we built something called the Resource Saver. And the Resource Saver is a really unique tool. So my challenge to 2 Degrees, I guess, was how do I get the information out of there? Particularly if I'm a smaller supplier and I don't have much time. I probably don't have a dedicated sustainability professional, almost certainly. So you need to make it easy. So the Resource Saver is our way of understanding the needs of our suppliers better, and then saying to them, do you know what, you're kind of here and the pack's here. If you do these 3 things, you'll get up to the pack. Remembering that you get to keep all of those savings as well, then actually we can signpost them to becoming more efficient businesses. So that's the latest tool that's really helped us to focus that activity and make it easy to engage within the Sustain and Save Exchange itself.
Sure. And this is about you getting closer to your suppliers. And as you mentioned, we are today here at the home of Arla Foods, just down the road from your headquarters. Can you really bring it to life? What have you been doing with Arla, to give us an example? I know you brought some suppliers here today to learn from Arla. Just explain how that works.
Do you know, the whole thing is about creating shared value. And we have created a lot of shared value with Arla Foods over the years. Whether it's farming practices or whether it's the great products that we're selling through on behalf of Arla Foods. So they're a really strong business partner to us. So they said, do you know what, we've done some really brilliant activity in LED lighting that has paid back tremendously. It's reduced our greenhouse gases, and it saved us a bunch of cash as well. So they very kindly offered to open up their premises, which they did today, to anybody from the Sustain and Save exchange that wants to come along and have a look, have a touch and a feel of that lighting technology. And then we had a Q&A session afterwards with the various companies and the lighting specialists themselves. And what was absolutely fantastic, there were so many people leaving the room today going, I really get it now. I can answer the questions that my boss asked me about LED lighting. We're going to start installing this and we're going to save a bunch of cash and a bunch of greenhouse gas emissions. That's, we can't do that without such a strong partner like Arla Foods. It's been absolutely fantastic.
And Arla Foods opening its doors up saying, come and look at what we've done. Sometimes allowing competitors to come in and see what they've done as well. And I know the exchange does encourage that. I wonder whether there's any opportunity for you guys to work with your competitors. I know that the UK supermarket retailers are very competitive. Is there space for you guys to work together on sustainability issues?
The short answer, yes. I think there's a number of areas here. We have to be careful about competition law. So we have to make sure we don't become, breaching antitrust regulations, for example. So always mindful of that. I think some competition is good. Because if we compete against each other, we're going to go further and faster. So we're really going to push that envelope. But equally, there's a whole load of activity on sustainability that should be pre-competitive, I think, that we're able to share with each other. And we share where we can. So last week I was at a meeting around palm oil, where we were just sharing what each of us is doing on palm oil. So there is absolutely the intention to do more of that. We have to be careful to make sure it doesn't breach antitrust, and there'll always be some areas where you want to be a leader as well.
Sure. So we've spoken a lot about the Asda journey. What about your journey? So when does a sustainability lead in a big business like Asda say, actually I've got to the end of where I can get to, I'm going to call it a day and I'm going to go and seek another challenge? When do you get to that point? Have you got to that point?
No. Do you know what gets me out of bed in the morning? It's about making products, sustainable products, affordable and accessible. I get really, really cross with retailers that produce a great product that is more sustainable and then go, well, we can add another 10% on top of the price of that. Asda and Walmart has a unique opportunity to be able to engage a vast number of people who otherwise wouldn't be able to engage in this space, to give them better lives, to give them great products, to give them products that don't have to compromise, and at great prices as well. And until we've delivered that through our sustainability program, I won't consider the job done. There's still quite a bit of path to go down.
So loads to do. But what are you most proud of in your time at Asda?
A whole number of things. But I think if I look back and kind of see what really jumps out at me, it's the fact that now I'm getting colleagues, particularly buying colleagues, coming to me off their own back and saying, do you know, I was thinking about doing X, Y, Z, and I'm thinking that's brilliant from a sustainability perspective. And they just want, a bit of benchmarking or a bit of support on it or a bit of guidance. That's fantastic. We're now seeing that two-way conversation. I'm not going to them, asking them to do things. They're coming to me asking for support. And that's what an achievement. That's just fantastic. And that's happening more and more every day and every week that goes by.
Fantastic. And do you have any advice to businesses watching this on 2 Degrees? How to devise a strategy, how to tackle the supply chain conundrum? What's any advice?
Let's bear in mind that the journey is this long and we're here, so we don't have all the answers. I think the advice to colleagues working in sustainability is to absolutely stick with it. It is and can be a frustrating role because by its nature you're transforming businesses. That's going to be frustrating, but the paybacks are massive. So stick with it for those colleagues. And in terms of building a plan, you've got to build a plan that is relevant to your own business, to your core purpose and to your bottom line. You've got to talk in a way that is relevant. So it might be actually, don't talk in a way around it's this for the environment, but talk around it's this for our costs or for this for our reductions or whatever it might be. So make it relevant for everybody to engage within and make it accessible as well. And if you can do those things, I think you're well on the way to becoming more sustainable.
Julian, thank you for spending some time with us and for sharing your story and some interesting work going on at Asda, and good luck with it all. For those of you tuning in, if you have any questions of your own that you'd like to ask Julian and the team at Asda, please do so. Use the button at the bottom of the video, submit your question, hit the send button, and we'll make sure that Julian and his team get back to you with some answers. Until next time, thank you for tuning in.